All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to This Week in Africa. Welcome back to Pan-African Perspectives, where we talk about all things pertaining to Africa and the advancement of Africa, challenges on the continent, things that you can do to avoid those challenges, and how you can ensure that you have and you maximize your experience. Before we get started, let me know if you guys can hear me. Today we got a controversial subject. A controversial subject, controversial topic. Today we're talking about what I hate about Ghana. I know that is a very, very controversial title, and we're going to talk about it in a second. But I just came back from Ghana, and we got a lot to talk about. But before we get into it, let me know if you can hear me and you can see me and where you're watching from. So Maureen Ed says you can hear me. Great. Maureen, you can hear me. I, by the way, am 45 minutes late to this live stream, all pertaining to challenges that I was having in Ghana. So you guys are going to have to let me know if you guys can hear me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, so that we can get into this. But we got a lot to review today. Just came back from Ghana. As I mentioned, it was a trip that was not necessarily as fruitful as I would have liked. Definitely had more that I wanted to do, but I did get a lot done. Great. So Maureen says you can hear me watching from sunny Southern California. Awele says you can hear me. Great. Sorry, let me just clean my screen. Okay, there we go. Screen is cleaned. Let's see. We got Manelik in the building. You can hear me. All right. I hope my connection is still working. All right, cool. My connection's still working. All right, cool. Can you guys hear me? You guys can hear me, see me, hear me? Okay. So let me just kind of give you a brief overview. So I was in Ghana for a little bit over 1 week. And so the question, Awele says, starting late today? Yeah, starting very late today. Yes, absolutely. Like, share, support the channel. So I went live. I'm going live late today because I got in late yesterday. Delayed flight, a number of other things that we're going to go over today. But there's a lot to review. So it looks like Maureen said you got the notification that I was live this time. Good. So we're very, very late to starting the live stream. So let me start with just kind of the overall. Here's what last week was like. So you guys got an idea. So as you can see, I'm very tired, haven't had much sleep. So I was in Ghana for just about 8 days. I got in on not this past Saturday, but the previous Saturday, and it stayed all the way through till Sunday. And while I was there, I had a number of different things that I had on the schedule. And many of those things that I had planned did not go as planned. But let's just start with like what the overall plan was, right? So the plan was to do a number of different interviews, meet with a number of different people, travel a few different places, and meet with different people. And excuse me, all of the delays and changes and updates happened because of the things that I'm going to talk about today. So whether someone I was supposed to meet with canceled or postponed or changed the date, whether I had to cancel, postpone, or change the date, whether or not I was on time for a particular meeting, all has to do with a number of different things that we're going to talk about today. And we're going to talk about how you can solve for these challenges so you do not end up in these situations. So Maureen's asking, did you interview with Alita Israel? I did. I think she showed some behind the scenes on her Instagram and maybe on YouTube somewhere. But yes, I did. I went out to Cebu, which, by the way, was on a different day than I initially planned, which is something we're going to talk about. So we got some things to talk about. I also interviewed Ito founder Margaret Deborah. I interviewed Ivy Prosper. I did an Airbnb tour. I did another tour and interview. So I got some things done, but almost everything that I did was because I had contingency plans in place. It looks like my Instagram live stream, something happened to it. Let me know on Instagram if you guys can see me. Something seems to be up with the Instagram live stream. I may have to log back out and log back in. Can you guys see me and hear me on Instagram right now? Let me know if you can. As you can see, I'm back in New York. Okay, they said they can. Kika Moonlight says yes, you can. Okay, I just can't see it from my perspective. Okay, cool. So we got a few people in the room. And so let's get into it. So there's a couple things that are major challenges when you go to pretty much any tropical place anywhere around the world. Ghana is no exception to that. We're talking about a country that is right on the prime meridian, pretty close to the border, very tropical environment and climate, very relaxed, very, very relaxed people, right? Sierra Leone is very similar to that in a certain sense, but we're talking about Ghana today. And so because people are very relaxed, there's a couple things that happens, right? There's this concept of Ghana man time. So Ghana sits on the time zone GMT. And you guys might remember I did the 10 things I wish I knew before coming to Ghana. It was like one of the first videos I did on the YouTube channel. And one of the things that you got to keep in mind when it comes to Ghana is the GMT and the joke that they say, Ghana man time, right? And you hear it, you see it, you know it, but until you live it, it is not something that you really truly understand until you're there. So what do I mean by that? Let me give you guys an example of Ghana man time. So for example, we were to, let's just go to the day that I was filming my interviews with Alita and not with Alita, with Margaret and with Ivy. So the time for the interview that I was supposed to do with them was 10 a.m. GMT. And so the thing is that the location in which we utilize has an entire setup. They have cameras, they have a mic system, they have SD card that they can give you. They have all the things that you normally need, right? And so, you pay to use the space and you are given someone who's going to help you, whether you're recording a podcast or you're recording a video. Either way, recording audio and video, they have someone there to do that for you. Let me just walk you through what happened that morning. So that morning, I get there at about 10:03. My first guest, UK person, very prompt, got there at 9:55. So we get there. Luckily, they are charging the battery for the camera. I say luckily because, at the very least, it was charging. Who knows how long it was charging, but it was charging. So we get there at 10. I'm going around and I'm looking for the person who's supposed to assist us with this because not everything's set up. The soundboard isn't set up. The camera is sitting just on a table and it's just kind of all not really situated yet. And so I'm trying to figure out how to get it set up. So I'm thinking to myself, there seems to be some things missing here. Not everything is set up properly. So I'm going around and I'm trying to ask the staff, but there's only one cleaning lady there and someone else who was there, but it's a shared co-working space. So she was actually working. So I'm asking the cleaning lady's let me call the person. When she says, let me call the person, she says, she means you literally yell out to that person, not call on the phone. So she's yelling for a name. Do you know that at 10:45 is when I first see the person that I'm looking for, right? So 10 o'clock is when the interview is supposed to start. 10:45 is when the guy shows up, or 10:35 to 10:45. When he shows up, the SD card, there is no SD card. So he sets everything up. We're getting ready to go. He's like, oh, there's no SD card. The SD card that goes inside of the camera is the thing that, it stores all the footage on, and you take that out, you put it in into your laptop, and you can move the footage onto your laptop, right? So it's not ready. In fact, there isn't one. So he has to go buy one. The first interview was supposed to be from 10, maybe 10:15 to 11:15. My second interview was supposed to be at 11:30. The first interview doesn't start till 11:30. Halfway through the interview, the battery on the laptop dies. Battery on the camera dies. So we have to take the battery out, start charging it again. Now, by this time, my second guest is already there. So sitting in on this interview now. And we are now at 11:30, and we're now at 12:15, and we are now holding on and waiting for the battery to charge. By the time we let the battery charge, we finish the interview. We're now at 1 p.m. Now, when I book this place, they make you book it for a minimum of 3 hours. So you book it from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So that means that the entire block was taken up. And the funny thing is, the person I'm speaking to says to me, the person working there is like, obviously complimentary will give you a little extra time. Of course, you'll give me a little extra time. Of course, we'll give you a little extra time. We're late. We're very late. Very, very late for just all of it, and underprepared, to say the very least. So then we start the second interview, and of course we have to kind of rush through the interview because the battery life is so short on that camera. So of course, we're in the middle of the last question, that battery died. And by the way, we let the battery charge for about 40 minutes. So all in all, I leave there at 3:00 p.m. I got there at 10 a.m., was supposed to be out by 1. I'm out of there by 3 p.m. Now, here's the thing. Couple of things that I needed to do in that instance to ensure that I was okay. Number one, I brought a separate camera, my own phone, and microphones, just in case this was to happen. So I have full continuity of audio and video on my own phone. What that means is I anticipated there may be some technical issues. I didn't come there and expect to only use their equipment. Now, the thing is, the camera that they utilize is a higher quality camera than the camera I have from my phone. So I have my own phone, audio and video backup, and instead of just using theirs. That was one thing. The other thing is, although I had afternoon meetings planned, as soon as I realized that the person who was supposed to come help us wasn't going to be available right away, I immediately said to my afternoon plans, where I was supposed to meet up with them at 2, I said, can we move to this evening? And we moved it to 8 p.m. The 2:00 meeting got moved to 8 p.m., and which I'm glad that I did with enough advance notice, because I did not get out of there until 3 p.m. So another thing I did was I brought my patience with me. I knew that I was going to you have to be patient. There's nothing you can do to speed these things up. If it's already happening the way it's happening, you got to go with the flow. You have to communicate early and often, whoever you can. Oh, let me mention too, by the way, when they didn't have an SD card, they didn't tell me they were going to buy an SD card. He just said, I'll be right back. And he was gone for about 35 minutes, going to try to find the SD card in the very beginning, the SD card that was supposed to go into the camera so that we could record. So, he's gone, and we're like, where is this guy? Luckily, there was AC, and the building had plenty of, light, and there were no issues, at least staying cool. but there was an expectation that this stuff would be ready. So, just take a deep breath, relax. You know, what I would also mention too, what Ivy Prosper did, which I thought was really smart, was she took it as a opportunity to do a live stream. So while we were sitting there and waiting for 30 minutes to 45 minutes for the battery to charge for the camera for that second interview, we went live. So we got a piece of content out of it. We had a good conversation on her live stream, and we ensured that there was at least something that we could do to pass the time that was still productive, right? It ensured that we maximized the use of that time, so we didn't just sit around twiddling our thumbs, being frustrated and angry about the circumstance that we were dealing with. So it was really important. And, Ivy's a pro. Ivy's one, pro meaning on, doing content, and two, she's a pro having lived in Ghana. She's on her second stint. The first time she moved to Ghana was in the early aughts. I think, was it 2011 to 2013? And then she came back in 2016, and she's been living in Ghana since 2016. So she knows what to expect and how these things can go. And she herself was thinking, I'm going to leave my house, because instead of going all the way back home and coming back out, I'm going to come with all the things that I plan to do for that day, just in case things run late. I don't have time to go all the way back home and come all the way back. So she planned for the potential outcome that ended up happening. So she herself also wasn't put in a bind by having to go all the way back home to get the materials she needed for a birthday party that she was going to, where she was actually bringing supplies for it. She actually brought it all with her, and she left directly from where we were to that event. Now imagine she was anticipating going back home and coming back again. This would have really, really set her back, because the length of time it took her to get home and to come back is pretty long. So she came prepared. And so, obviously I titled the video the way I did to grab people's attention, to help people understand some of the things that you might run into as challenges. And these are the things I hear diasporans say when they're in Ghana. I hate this thing. I hate that thing. And so what I'm trying to do is to help you understand what you can do to ensure that you maximize your time when something like this happens, or you have backups in place. Also, I was supposed to interview someone on Friday. I reached out to 3 different people. Sorry, on Monday. So I landed on Sunday. Yes, I left on Saturday. No. Did I land on Sunday or did I land on Saturday? I landed Saturday evening. Yeah, I landed Saturday evening, and Monday I was supposed to be interviewing someone and traveling out to where they were to interview them. And because I didn't hear back from who I needed to hear back from in time, she had something else that came up that she had to do. And then we had to move the date from Monday all the way till Friday, which rearranged my whole schedule. I had to change all of my plans. But this was an important interview that I had to do. And so we had to move things around. Now, the photographer and videographer that I utilized, when I spoke to him, I told him exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing a tour. We're doing a sit-down interview. We're going to need drone footage. But I emphasize, I need you to make sure you don't forget your drone. So in me emphasizing not to forget the drone, they also did not bring an extra battery for the camera that they brought. So guess what? In the middle of our tour, the camera died. So luckily, I have multiple devices and I had my mics. We shot the rest of the content with my phone and with my mic. But really, what I ended up paying for was their drone footage. They didn't shoot everything that I asked them to shoot. They did not proactively communicate with me that the battery was dying. The battery just died, and I was told later, like, oops, the battery died. So these are things that you got to kind of go with the flow on, and it's not just at this particular instance. We're talking about filming and shooting, but it happens across all things that you need done. As long as you have someone doing some work for you, these are things that you can anticipate to be challenges that you can run into. And if you do not plan plan and have backups, you are going to be a very frustrated individual, and you are going to run into many more additional challenges if you do not plan ahead. You always have to have contingency plans when you are in Ghana. People do not proactively communicate. People tend to be very late. And beyond all that, there's a very relaxed, nonchalant kind of attitude. There isn't always a sense of urgency when it comes to getting things done on your behalf. And so when you have all of those three things happening at the same time, you have to have contingencies in place in order to maintain your sanity and to ensure things go smoothly when you have other parties that are that are dependent on you for something that you're doing, whether for you to be on time or for you to come equipped to do certain things. um that's going to be really important. So Nyansa Empire says, I think you should get in touch with them and let them know what they did and that you're not going to patronize them again. Yes, they have been notified of what has happened. Unfortunately, it's kind of a requirement to not requirement to use them, but they are one of the few. And that's one of the things you'll find is that there aren't a ton of companies doing some of the things that you need. And so that's another reason why customer service isn't always at its best, or you won't find that people aren't always going to be at their best, because they're one of very few people doing something. And when there's little competition, there is little incentive to improve, right? So this is something that you'll find over and over again with many of the companies that you'll interact with and you'll deal with, is that there's little incentive to improve because there aren't a ton of people doing the thing that they do. So if they're the one company that has a podcast studio with mics and with cameras and all the things set up, we don't have too many of those. So if you don't have too many of those, people are going to be reliant and dependent on that one particular place. And if that is going to be the case, then that means that they don't feel that they're required to make adjustments and changes. And it's not even something that's necessarily, you know, devious or something they purposely do. It's just you're not going to be incentivized to do better when there isn't much competition. Think about the few cable companies. I always talk about this when I talk about the US, right? You think about the few cable companies you have in your particular region. Their plan, like, they don't improve because there aren't that many, right? They don't improve on pricing, they don't improve on services, because there aren't that many. There's not much competition, so they don't have to make many changes, right? That's why we don't, like, in the United States, they tend to say they don't like monopolies, because if you have a monopoly, that's not best for the end consumer generally. So in this case, you have similar challenges. I hope that makes sense. You guys get what I'm saying here. So Tim Black says, please hit the like button, everybody. Yes, please do. Maureen says, Taki, 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 it's hard to do business and live on the continent, and they wonder why we don't return or move there. Now, I will say many of us return and move there in spite of these challenges because we see so many opportunities, right? Some would say challenges for some are opportunity for others. And so, obviously we're talking about developing economies, right? And in developing economies, you're going to have painful areas, but you're also going to have areas where if you do things right, you can begin to build an empire for yourself and for your future generations, right? So these are also things that, obviously are challenges, they're annoyances, but also at the same time can turn out to be things that present opportunities for yourself and for your own business. So now if anybody else is thinking, you know what, maybe I should start a podcast studio, and I'll make sure that I have all the things in place, the staff is well equipped and trained, and ensure that these things don't happen. Now this creates more competition. Maybe the place that I was at earlier and that I'm speaking of will make sure that they put some of these things in place, because now there's competition and there's other folks doing what it is that they do. So yes, there are definitely challenges. I won't even say that there aren't, but there also are solutions, and you just need to start to think about those things as you plan your move to the continent. You listen, I still love Ghana. I'll still be going back as often as I possibly can. I'm still working on investments there right now, and it's not everybody all the time that present these challenges to you, but it happens more often than not. And I think you guys should be aware of that. As I mentioned to you guys before, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly here. But whenever we're talking about things that the bad and the ugly, we're always going to talk about solutions for things that you can do to ensure that you have the smoothest possible transition moving to the continent that you possibly can, or while you're staying there for extended periods of time. Because I know that there are a lot of people bashing Africa in general who live on the continent. All they do is complain. There are also people who speak about Ghana and the continent in general through rose-colored glasses. And I think both of those are not useful, right? The people who just constantly spend time talking negatively about living in Africa, specifically living in Ghana, there are a few pages that's all they do. That's not useful, because all they're doing is complaining. And then the people who pretend like there are no challenges, it's also useful, because then when people get there, they don't know what to expect. My goal here is to tell you, here are the challenges that you are going to face. And with those challenges, here are some solutions that you can have to ensure that when you face those challenges, you have something in place that allows you to kind of smoothly run through those challenges, and that they don't leave you debilitated or stagnant, stuck, whatever the words are to describe not being able to get through those challenges. So that's the way I plan to continue to talk about the continent here on this platform. And so I think that sometimes it gets misconstrued when people see the thumbnail and they see the title and they see the description, that all I'm doing is spending my time talking negatively about Africa. But if you watch the live streams, I think, which many of you do, what you find is that obviously the title and the description, that's used to bring people in, to pull people in. Because at the end of the day, if I said, here are 4 things that you can do to maximize your time in Ghana, I guarantee you a fraction of the views would be there. I've mentioned this before when I did, hate versus love, the number of views and participation versus the other way around. Here's a good point, and this is something that I've heard is potentially in the works. Andy G says positive is how I live. Sorry. So Pro Woman says, doesn't Wodemaya have a mansion he converted to a studio for people to create content? He did a video on it. Yes, I do remember that. I haven't heard about it in a while. I remember the video from like 3 years ago. But that's a good point. That's something that I can check on. But I'm not 100% sure how it's structured and how it's set up. But yeah, that's a good point. That's something I can check on. I forgot about that. But yeah, but I don't remember how exactly he had it. Is it open to the public, or was it open to certain people? Do you guys remember? Sorry, I needed a water break. So again, that's the reason why I do this content, right? So I think some people take issue with the titles that I use, the thumbnails that I use. They feel as though I am painting a negative picture of the continent of Africa. I hope those of you who watch all the way through, and especially those of you who have watched till now, understand why it is that I do that, right? And I hope that you find this useful. I give examples of things that I go through and what I've done to ensure that when you guys are making the decision to visit, invest, or move in this case to Ghana, that you have the available information. My goal is always to make sure people have all the available information, or as much information as possible, before they make a life-changing decision or a financial decision, because it does cost a bit to travel to Ghana. And if you're going to spend a significant amount of time there, these are things that you should know. Yeah. So, these are all things that you just have to keep in mind when it comes to moving to the continent, visiting the continent, spending a significant amount of time there. And so I've learned after living in Ghana for a little over 2.5 years, or about 2.5 years, living in Sierra Leone for a little over a year, through that time of almost 4 years living on the continent, I learned a lot about patience, about having contingency plans, and making sure that you can navigate the challenges that are inevitably going to come your way, because that is just the name of the game. And how it works is that there are always going to be challenges. There are always going to be things that you need to do to ensure that you walk away with your sanity, because it is not easy, to say the least, when it comes to just your everyday life in Ghana, for sure. All right. So Proman says, open anybody creating content. I think it's still there. I'll follow up on this too. This is in regards to Woody Maya's content house that he was promoting a couple years back. It's been a couple years since he's promoted it and he mentioned it. So I don't know where they are with it, but yeah. So that is that. Let's see. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? We started very, very late today, guys. I'm sorry. I got in late yesterday. So, one of the other things that is better than it has been before is Ghana has many more options to get to America faster than, like, for instance, like Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone, if you're traveling to the United States, the quickest flight you could have gotten back in the day was Air Senegal. Air Senegal was about 13 hours total, which was great. I think, 19 hours total, I think it was. Basically, it was a short layover in Senegal and then Senegal straight to Sierra Leone. So you fly to Senegal, short layover in Senegal to the States, or the other way around, right? That Air Senegal no longer flies to Sierra Leone. So you are at 24 hours at minimum traveling to Sierra Leone for any reasonable pricing. With Ghana, you have direct flights to New York, 11 hours. You have short layover into Newark, New Jersey, 14 hours total travel time. And then you have other flights into Washington, D.C. in that, whatever, 12-hour range or whatever it looks like. Unfortunately, there aren't direct flights every single day, and we'll get there eventually, but it's not like that every single day. But, that can create challenges, especially when you have a flight that's delayed. So we had a flight that was delayed by an hour. Supposed to leave at 10, left at 11. We landed in our location, and by the time we landed in Lomé, the airport at Lomé, the plane was already boarding. Now, we get to the gate, and they're like, they're boarding. What took you guys so long? It's like, well, we got here late. So anyway, just a minor challenge, not a big deal, because at the end of the day, we got here. But I got into Newark because it wasn't a direct flight into New York yesterday. And so I had to figure out my way from Newark to New York City with large suitcases. Wasn't easy, but we made it happen. Cool. Anybody have any other thoughts, comments, concerns, ideas, questions about my time in Ghana? This is going to be a shorter live stream. I mean, look, it's already been 35 minutes. I can't believe I've talked for 35 minutes already. I didn't even realize that. But this is going to be a shorter live stream. We started 45 minutes late because because of some things I had to deal with in just today, and slowed me down a little bit. So it looks like there aren't a ton of additional questions. If you guys have questions, I'm going to be reading the comments on this video when it becomes a replay video. So I'm more than happy to answer those questions for those of you who are watching the replay, or those who are watching the live stream and want to ask questions later. I will be answering those questions in the comments. So just because you don't ask them now doesn't mean you won't get answers to those questions later. So feel free to shoot me a note in the comments after this video is posted. So Pro Woman says, random question, but related. Is Diddy trial news in Ghana? He was big there. Yes, it is. You know, I mean, this is world news, right? I mean, this is world news, pretty much world news. I've heard a lot of opinions about it so far. Let me tell you that one of the things that I hear that's interesting being in Ghana is, in some cases, what I hear is a little bit of, I had a couple of conversations with folks that thought that Cassie was more at fault than I think what I hear in America people are saying. That was interesting. But yeah, I mean, the conversations are happening for sure. I think that there's, you know, it's a big trial all around the world right now. All eyes are on this particular discussion, even though it's specific to the United States and the United States law, etc. You know, yeah, people around the world, and they're trying to understand, what does the racketeering charge, what is that? I mean, most Americans don't even know what that is. So yeah, it is something. I haven't talked about it much. I talked about the elevator, the hotel incident, but I didn't talk about this particular trial because it is an American-based thing. It's not an Africa-based story, so I don't talk about it much. I hear that the US dollar has less power in Ghana. Have you experienced that? It does. So let me walk you through the Ghana currency changes since I was living in Ghana. So when I first moved to Ghana, it was the end of December 2020. And the currency was, for every $1, it was 6 Ghana cedis. So for every $1, 6 Ghana cedis. When I left Ghana a little over 2.5 years later, or just about 2.5 years later, it was $1 for every 15 Ghana cedis. So the Ghana cedi not only went and halved its value, it went even further than that. And it was a 13-month straight decline in the Ghana cedi. And at one point, it was the worst performing currency in the world because of its decline. Now, as of earlier this year, it's one of the best performing currencies in the world because of its rise. So it went from 15 Ghana cedis to every 1 cedi. Now it's just about 11, between 10 and 11. Sorry, let me take that back. It was 15 Ghana cedis to every $1. Now it's just about 11 or 10 Ghana cedis to every $1. And it seems that it will continue to trend in that direction. There was a point in time at the inception of many of these West African countries that the dollar and the local currency of those countries were actually equivalent. There was a point in time where every 1 cedi was close to $1. 1 leon was close to $1. It's very close. In fact, at one point in time, there may have been African currencies that were outperforming the US dollar. You know, that was many years ago. Very rarely does that happen now. But, you know, the performance against the dollar has been improving. Now, some people say it's because the fall of the dollar. Some people say it's the rise of the Ghana cedi. But I would say that the Sierra Leone has remained constant at 24 leons to every $1 the last almost 2 years. It's been that, you know, slightly fluctuates, but it's been that. Whereas in Ghana, we see a difference. So it seems like Ghana's currency is outperforming the dollar just in terms of the last couple of months. So yes, to answer your question, Maureen, either the Ghana cedi has improved its value or the dollar has less value. I mean, it all depends on how you want to look at it. But yes, It has been different than it had been previously. Yes, good point. Any other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts before we go on? I see some people on TikTok that I haven't said hello to. So what's up? What's up, TikTokers? Those of you on TikTok. Here's a question. Is the word on the Ghanaian streets that Ghana will join the AES? No. I haven't heard anything about the word of Ghana joining the AES. I think everybody in Ghana is excited that Mahama has been, and that's the president of Ghana, that he has been embracing the AES. In particular, Ibrahim Traore even came to Mahama's inauguration when he became president. So they're talking about normalizing trade and working with them. There hasn't been talk about joining the AES. So we'll have to watch and see. But I don't think that there's been any talk about that on the ground in Ghana. Not from the people that I had spoken to, and not from anything I read in the news. I hear that they're normalizing relations, and Mahama's acting as a liaison actually between the AES and ECOWAS. And so that should be interesting to see if the AES and ECOWAS can normalize trading relations as the AES builds up its own bloc as a subset, as a sub-region within what used to be the ECOWAS region. We'll see. There's a possibility for that, and we'll see if Tinubu, who's the head of ECOWAS and happens to be the president of Nigeria, and how he and the Western allies feel about that. I think that there's some questions to be answered on that, and we'll see what happens. By the way, we're expected to go live with This Month in Africa tomorrow with Inem Richardson, and we're going to talk about Ibrahim Traore. We're going to talk about everything he's done so far. What has he done? We're going to go into details of everything that he's been accused of, everything that he has done, that he has pointed out that he's done, and that has been widely reported or widely underreported. We're going to talk about everything tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about it with Inem Richardson, who has been on the ground in Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso over the last couple of years, mostly spending her time in Burkina Faso. So she has firsthand knowledge and accounts of what's happening there. And she's a journalist on the ground. So it's helpful to have someone who built the Thomas Sankara Museum, focused on Pan-Africanism, living on the ground there. You get to hear directly from a person who's living in the country. What is the country like right now? What has Ibrahim Traore been up to? We're going to get all that information and insight tomorrow on the live stream. That's going to be at 2 p.m. GMT, which means that is 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 a.m. Pacific. That will be the time that we go live. That's for This Month in Africa. I don't think we'll be able to do This Week in Africa. If we do, it won't be on Thursday. It will likely be on Friday. This Thursday is my nephew's graduation, so I will not be able to do this. Yeah, I don't think pro women. I mean, I guess we can mention what you're mentioning. Something about Harvey Weinstein is currently being retried at the same time as Diddy trial is occurring. Yeah, I don't think that's relevant here. Look, I know these are big stories to other people. It's just not really relevant to Africa, right? They're big stories, and I get it. And and if it was relevant to the continent of Africa, I would definitely talk about them more. But the Diddy trial, Harvey Weinstein trial, these things just don't really correlate with the continent of Africa. So I don't want to spend too much time commenting on those particular stories, unless there's a tie-in to Africa, and there isn't one as of yet. So until there is, I won't spend too much time talking about those stories. Now, the Instagram page will post news and stuff as it pertains to any major verdicts that because Diddy is in the diaspora, and so we do talk about things happening in the diaspora on the Instagram page in terms of news updates. But on this live stream and the live streams that we do, we won't probably spend too much time on those topics. Random Universe 1000 says, which part of Ghana do you live? So I always spend my time in Chado. I lived in Chado for 2 years. The apartment I'm looking to get is going to be in Chado or Trade Fair in that area. I was in an Airbnb for most of my trip, actually my entire trip, in Trade Fair Chado area. So that's to be expected. And I used to spend some time in East Legon Hills at a friend's place whenever I would come to town. These days, I've decided that I'm not going to be doing that anymore. It's just too far north and too far away from everything going on. So now when I go to Ghana, I strictly spend my time in Trade Fair Chado area. Maureen Ed says, question, have you visited Nigeria and have you visited the area where the recent floods occurred? So I have visited Nigeria, specifically I have been to I was only in Nigeria for 2 weeks. My entire time I've been on the continent, I went to Lagos for 2 weeks. So it's not even like I haven't even been all around Nigeria. I was really on Banana Island most of the time. Sorry, Victoria Island, VI. I was on Victoria Island for most of the time. And so I spent 15 days or so in Lagos, specifically Victoria Island. And so no, I wasn't where the floods occurred. I will say my time in Lagos was impactful and memorable. Made some lifelong friends in those 2 weeks that I was there, and had a lot of fun too while I was there. Also, crazy stories, personal stories that, go back and watch the live streams. If you just go to my page and you type in Nigeria in my search bar within my YouTube channel, you'll see the content and the comments around that content. I had an Airbnb experience that wasn't the greatest. Had a situation, a personal life change that happened while I was there. And so that basically led to a cycle of something that we'll talk about at another time. If you guys want to ever hear about life, like dating on the continent, that's going to be for another time. We'll have some content around that. But yeah, that Nigeria trip was pivotal in that situation. So Maureen says, I'll visit Lagos for the first time in a few weeks. Yeah, I like Victoria Island a lot. People talk about Lekki Phase 1, Lekki Phase 2. For me, I like Victoria Island because it's a residential and a commercial area, and there was plenty of restaurants that I could choose from that were nearby. There were, hotels that are rather, priced pretty well, considering there was just a number of things that I found that made it useful for me. And most of the people who I know who live in Lagos told me, you as an American, you should stay in VI. And so I did. So that's what people recommended to me. Okay, cool. Any other questions, comments, thoughts before we bring this thing to a close? I know I asked that before, but I'm asking it again. Wow, we're at 48 minutes on this live stream. All right, guys. Again, for those of you who haven't got a chance to ask a question in the live stream, but you want to ask me something, you can put it in the comments on the replay of this video. This video will be replayed across all platforms. You can put your comments there. We'll be sure to answer your questions and your comments and respond to them. Stay tuned for tomorrow is expected. Tomorrow is expected this month in Africa live stream, and later this week. Stay tuned for what is potentially going to be this week in Africa. And shout out to Ya, who's here. The reason why one of my interviews happened the day before yesterday because of Ya. So shout out to Ya, who's in the building. We have to catch up. Kushe, we have to catch up. Lots of catching up to do. So, I'll message you. All right, guys. Again, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, hit like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time a new video comes out. Tomorrow PST is going to be 7 a.m. PST. 7 a.m. PST is when this month in Africa's live stream will occur. It will be 10 a.m. EST, 7 a.m. PST. Shout out to ya. Okay, there's another question. What do you think about the KNK squad? I have no idea what you're talking about, to be honest with you. Should I know who the KNK squad is? Am I missing something? How do I not know what the KNK squad is? Let me see. KNK squad. The most turned channel on YouTube. Prepare amazing content like vlogs, challenges, reaction routines, and pranks. Oh, I have no idea who this is. Is this a family that moved to Ghana? Scamdemic in Ghana. Okay. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with them. Decluttering their place, talking about scams that are happening in Ghana. A 5-star restaurant situation. Okay, I'm not too familiar. She went viral. Okay. Okay, I didn't see what they went viral for. But let me look at the videos and see if the most popular video. Let's see. Project housing tour in Ghana. What does the inside really look like? 111,000 views. Is that what we're talking about? Is that what was viral? Or was there something else? I think that's, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I haven't gotten a chance to check them out, but I'll check them out and let you know my thoughts at a later date. So for the negative thoughts on Ghana. Okay. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with them in particular. To be honest with you, I don't watch a ton of content from other folks. I see stuff show up in my feed, and every once in a while I'll watch something, but if it doesn't show up in my feed, I don't see it. But what I noticed about these two though, for sure, with their thumbnails, they have no problem, at least 4 years ago, putting their middle finger up to the camera. That's for sure. I think that it's been an interesting way to get people to click on the videos though. Hey, it seemed to be working in some cases, right? But no, I'm not too familiar with them. They went viral 4 years ago. Okay, yeah. I mean, I see over the last 4 years, they've definitely been posting content about their experiences living on the continent. I'll have to check them out and let you know what my thoughts are. I don't really know too much about them to be able to tell you, but yeah, it seems as though they've they've been telling their story, even being botched in the Dominican Republic. It looks like getting a BBL in the DR. Okay, all right. Well, that's that. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you guys all tomorrow for this month in Africa, and later this week, hopefully, for this week in Africa. And with that, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys all on the next video.